When it comes to the carp world, it's an absolute minefield when it comes to making rigs. Everybody's got their own thing. Now in my eyes, this is the simplest, the world's simplest rig to tie, in my opinion. The Ronnie rig, the spinner rig, now sort of traditionally used with a pop-up. Now today I'm going to talk you through how I fish it with a bottom bait, a wafter and a pop-up. So the Ronnie's always been quite an easy rig to tie, but this just speed things up, no end, and probably the quickest that I can make a Ronnie rig or a spinner rig in this scenario. Right, so let's keep this clean and simple, really easy. Now, first of all, you need to head over to the Gemini site and get yourself some Gemini booms. They're pre-made for you, the swivel's on the end and they're a fused boom as well. When you drop them in the water, they're pretty much invisible. So first thing you're going to need to do is get yourself some kickers. Now the ones I've been using at the moment are from Corda and they're the bloodworm ones, the new red ones they've brought out. They look very similar to a maggot, so if you're fishing naturals over the top of this or you've got that as your hook bait on this particular rig, it works a treat. What I do is, first thing I do is just pull one out of the packet and I snip both ends off. My hook of choice, and that is a Fang X from Nash. Now what I do is, obviously I put the smaller end down and push it down the eye, down the back of the hook, even before I get it anywhere near the boom itself. So it'll be sitting just like this. So next thing I do is I pull it up and I obviously put the back end of the hook through the back of the Ronnie swivel and then obviously pull that bloodworm kicker down. Absolutely beautiful. So that is the hook in position. So next up, you want to get yourself a micro ring swivel. Now you can get this from any brand, it doesn't matter. Pull that down at the back of the hook and that's the first thing you want to do. Next up, you want to get a hook bead of your choice. Now these particular ones are the OMC ones. They pull over and they sit very firm on the back of the hook. And the reason for that is if you are fishing at range, and I've had this in the past, you cast, you crank your rod and what happens, that bead pops down and you're not fishing effectively. By using these beads, you eliminate that problem. What I always do is I run a line from the back of the barb across and I run the bait bead just down from that. Right, now there is one last thing just before you hook on that hook bait. Now this is a dark matter anti-tangle sleeve. Now the first thing I do is with one of these, I like to cut off a little bit at the end. When I say a little bit of the end, I'm talking 3-4 mil. And the reason for that is because of the fuse ends on these booms, what you do is you sort of crimp that end up. What it does is with a little bit of lubrication, you can pull it down and it sits down on there, absolutely beautiful. So in terms of rig mechanics, that is your rig done. Now it's time to put on the hook bait of your choice. Now this is where it gets spicy. So I'm going to kick it off with what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. It's traditionally used is a pop-up on a Ronnie. So as you can see, it pulls the hook directly off the floor. And what you can also do is to get your buoyancy 110%, if you need to, you can then add things like tungsten putty to just help and get that rig sitting absolutely spot on. Now we move on to a wafter. Now a wafter, as you can see, the hook's now sat on the deck and that little beautiful magic natural bean is sitting just off the back of that hook. Again, beads in place, everything's perfect, and that looks like a bite to me. So to finish it off, with obviously a bottom bait. Now something I use in a lot of my angling, and that is why I love this rig so much. You can just change your hook baits and get different scenarios on the bottom really easy. Whether that's plastics, a bottom bait out the bag, whether you're fishing naturals, whatever that may be, this rig has basically got you. So some definite no-nos with these particular booms. Now this isn't something you'd want to put in a PVA bag, and you've seen it before on the bank where someone's got a boom and it's all crimped up, and that, quite frankly, it's just not fishing effectively. What you can do though is, if you do want bait around that hook bait, is use some mesh, pull it down, some PVA mesh, use a splicing needle, pull it down, and what you can actually do is just pull your hook into that mesh. Well, not only does it protect your hook on the cast, but when it hits the bottom, what you'll find is it will sit down and it will leave that little beautiful mini mix of goodness, if you like, around your hook bait. And also if there's any light, sort of low level weed as such, or silkweed, what you'll find is because of them pellets have then dropped down, your hook will then sit presented every single time. So next up, and a big no-no for me, is fishing in thick weed with this particular rig. It's just not going to be sitting right, and it's going to cause you problems no end. And last but not least for me, another no-no would be just to cast that rig out. Now a lot of people get this wrong. They put their hook bait on, they cast it out. After 4 or 5 hours or however long you've had that rod out, you've had a pop-up on and it's sitting like this. It's not even sitting how it should be sitting. So what I'm trying to put across is whether that's a wafter, whether that is a bottom bait, whether that is a pop-up, always, always, always drop it in your margin, see how it's looking. When you're happy with it, if you need to add trim down or add a little bit more putty or even a shot, whatever that may be, you can do that there and then. So there it is, as a very quick insight how I tie. I feel my very quick and probably the quickest rig I can tie on the bank in something so simple and something you can use in limitless scenarios. So hopefully you maybe have taken just something away from this video and you can use in your own angling and hopefully get a nosser pig on the bank. And he's in again, boy! Well, what a magical moment this is. And she looked very big. Very big. Alright, come on, baby. 36 pounds on the nose.